The time is the late 17th century. Europe is beginning to emerge from the long shadow of the Dark Ages. The continent is slowly awakening from centuries of tradition, superstition, and absolute authority. The unquestionable power of churches and monarchs begins to tremble as a new force starts to stir, the force of human reason. This shift marks the dawn of a new era, an era that dares to ask questions, to challenge ancient doctrines, and to imagine a society built not on fear, but on freedom and rational thought. This voice of reason will soon have a name: the Enlightenment. John Locke, who redefined the relationship between people and government. Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who believed in the natural goodness of humanity and the power of collective will. Voltaire, whose sharp wit and fierce advocacy for freedom of speech challenged the very foundations of tyranny and intolerance. It all begins with a question echoing across Europe: if I can think, why must I obey blindly? Reason and science became their new compass, tools not only to understand the world, but to shape it. This compass didn't point north, it pointed inward, toward human dignity, and outward, toward justice. And as this intellectual journey unfolded, it led people back to something buried under centuries of domination and silence: a long-lost treasure, individual liberty. In England, a thinker named John Locke is writing bold ideas. It's the mid-1600s, a time of political upheaval. England has just experienced a civil war, the execution of a king, and the brief rise of a republic. In this turbulent landscape, Locke begins to write not with fear, but with clarity and conviction. He declares a radical truth: that all people are born with certain inalienable rights, not granted by kings, not handed down by tradition, but inherent by nature. These rights are life, liberty, and property, and no ruler, no matter how powerful, has the authority to take them away. Locke challenges the old world order. To him, government is not a divine institution, it is a contract. A contract between the rulers and the ruled. Its only purpose? To protect those natural rights. And if a government becomes corrupt, if it violates this trust, the people not only can resist, they must. They have the moral right to rise up and create a new system that honors their freedom. John Locke does not lead armies or crown himself a ruler. But his pen proves just as powerful. By placing the rights of the individual at the center of politics, he helps turn the Enlightenment from a dream into a movement, and freedom from an ideal into a demand. In the mid-18th century, a writer from Geneva listens to nature: Jean-Jacques Rousseau. He believed that humans were born free, living in harmony with their surroundings, but over time, civilization, with its rules, institutions, and artificial constraints, had entangled them in metaphorical chains. Rousseau argued that this process of civilization had corrupted the natural goodness of human beings, distorting their desires, and making them more self-interested and less compassionate. In his view, society had turned human freedom into a hollow illusion, forcing individuals to conform to social expectations and inequalities. In essence, Rousseau's vision of liberty was not a solitary, individual pursuit, but a collective journey toward a more just and harmonious society. He believed that through the social contract, individuals could rediscover their inherent freedom, but this freedom would only be realized when everyone acted in unison, bound by the common will of the people. And then, there is Voltaire, a sharp-tongued French writer whose words cut through the darkness of his time. Voltaire was a man unafraid to challenge the most powerful institutions in Europe: the church, the monarchy, and the pervasive ignorance that dominated society. His fierce wit and fearless critique made him one of the leading figures of the Enlightenment, a man who believed that reason and logic could overcome superstition and tyranny. Voltaire's outspokenness came at a heavy cost. He was imprisoned multiple times, exiled from France for years, and faced the wrath of those in power. Yet, no matter how harsh the punishment, he was never silenced. His pen remained a weapon against injustice and oppression. Perhaps one of his most famous and enduring quotes is, "I may not agree with what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it." This was not just a statement about tolerance. It was a declaration of a fundamental principle of liberty: the right to freedom of expression. Voltaire understood that without the freedom to think and speak openly, true progress could never occur. These ideas didn't remain locked in books or confined to the minds of philosophers. The writings of John Locke, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and Voltaire began to ripple outward, crossing borders and inspiring real-world change. The Enlightenment was no longer just a philosophy, it had become a movement. It challenged traditional hierarchies, questioned inherited authority, and empowered individuals to think for themselves. It reshaped the political landscape of the Western world, setting the stage for modern democracy, human rights, and constitutional government. The ideas of Locke, Rousseau, and Voltaire were not just theoretical, they were revolutionary. They proved that the pen could be mightier than the sword, and that ideas, once unleashed, could change the world. Three thinkers, three perspectives, but one shared dream: the free individual. Though they came from different backgrounds and held different views on how society should be organized, John Locke, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and Voltaire were united by a powerful common vision: a world in which human beings could live with dignity, autonomy, and purpose. Together, their ideas planted the seeds of modern democracy. They challenged the old world of kings and empires, replacing it with a belief in human rights, representative government, and civil liberties. What we now call democracy, with its emphasis on individual freedom, equality before the law, and the right to speak one's mind, was built upon the foundations they laid. Their legacy is not just found in books or declarations, but in every act of free expression, every fair election, and every protest in the name of justice. They did not simply imagine a freer world, they made it possible. Today, whenever we think freely, speak openly, and make our own choices, we hear the faint whispers of Enlightenment thinkers echoing through time. Their words may have been written centuries ago, but their spirit is alive in every classroom that encourages critical thought, in every court that upholds human rights, and in every citizen who dares to question authority. As long as we listen, they still speak, not just in libraries or history books, but in our laws, our values, and our everyday actions. Because ideas know no chains. They move across borders and generations. They grow stronger when shared, and they endure when all else fades. The Enlightenment was not just a chapter in the past, it is a light we still follow today.